583 people killed in a single afternoon, not in the air, on the ground. On March 27, 1977, two of the most advanced aircraft ever built, both Boeing 747 jumbo jets, both fully loaded with passengers, collided on a fog-covered runway on the Spanish island of Tenerife. No one on one of the planes survived. Only 61 people escaped the other. It remains, to this day, the deadliest accident in the history of aviation. And it never should have happened. This is the story of Tenerife, and this is what really happened. March 27, 1977. A Sunday afternoon, thousands of tourists were flying into the Canary Islands, a Spanish archipelago off the west coast of Africa, famous for its warm climate and beaches. Two of those flights were destined for Las Palmas on the island of Gran Canaria. The first was KLM Flight 4805, a Boeing 747-200 named the Rhine. It had departed Amsterdam that morning carrying 234 passengers, Dutch holidaymakers, families, couples heading south to escape the northern European winter. In the cockpit sat Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, age 50, KLM's most celebrated pilot, chief flight instructor for the entire Boeing 747 fleet. His face had appeared in KLM's own advertising campaigns, the face of the airline's prestige and safety. He had over 11,000 hours of flight experience. If you were a passenger on a KLM flight, Van Zanten was the man you hoped was in the captain's seat. The second was Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747-100 named Clipper Victor. It had originated in Los Angeles, stopped in New York, and was now crossing the Atlantic with 380 passengers aboard, mostly American retirees on their way to board a luxury Mediterranean cruise. In the captain's seat was Victor Grubbs, 56 years old, 21,000 hours of flight experience, a veteran of decades in the air, two legendary pilots, two iconic aircraft, both headed to the same island, and then everything changed. At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a bomb exploded in the terminal building at Las Palmas Airport. It had been planted by a Canary Islands separatist group. No one was killed, but the airport was immediately shut down. Dozens of aircraft were diverted, including both KLM 4805 and Pan Am 1736. Their new destination, Los Rodeos Airport on the neighboring island of Tenerife. A small airport, a single runway, and no ground radar. What followed would change aviation forever. Los Rodeos was not built for this. Aircraft were arriving faster than the small airport could handle. The single taxiway was blocked by parked planes. Jets were being directed to hold on the runway itself, the only available space. The radio frequencies were congested, controllers were overwhelmed, and the weather, which had been clear when the first diversions arrived, was beginning to change. Fog was rolling in from the surrounding mountains, dense, fast-moving, disorienting fog that reduced visibility on the runway to just a few hundred meters. Captain Van Zanten made a decision. While waiting for Las Palmas to reopen, he ordered his aircraft to be fully refueled at Tenerife. 55,000 liters of fuel. It was a practical calculation. Refueling here would save time at Las Palmas and help him keep to his schedule. But it was a decision that would have fatal consequences. The refueling took 35 minutes. During that time, KLM had let its passengers disembark into the small terminal. Pan Am had not. Captain Grubbs kept his passengers aboard, doors open, hoping to leave as quickly as possible. There was another reason Van Zanten was anxious to depart. Dutch aviation regulations had recently introduced strict limits on pilot duty hours. Van Zanten was watching the clock. If he didn't take off soon, his crew would be legally prohibited from flying the return leg to Amsterdam. He would be stranded overnight in Tenerife with 234 passengers. The professional and financial consequences would be severe. When Las Palmas finally reopened, both aircraft were cleared to taxi. Because the taxiway was still blocked by parked planes, both 747s were directed onto the runway itself to taxi to the takeoff point. An unusual procedure, but the only option available. The KLM aircraft went first, reaching the end of the runway and turning to face the direction of takeoff. The Pan Am aircraft followed, instructed by the tower to turn off the runway at a specific taxiway to allow the KLM to depart. The fog was now so thick that neither aircraft could see the other, and the tower could see neither of them. What happened next unfolded in a matter of seconds, but it had been building for hours. At the end of the runway, the KLM crew completed their pre-takeoff checklist. First Officer Klaus Muers contacted the tower to receive their ATC clearance, the route they would fly after takeoff. It was routine. It was not a takeoff clearance. It was simply the instructions for their flight once they were in the air. But something went wrong in the exchange. The tower transmitted the route clearance. Muers read it back, and at the end of his transmission, added a phrase that no one in the tower expected to hear. "We are now at takeoff." At that precise moment, Captain Van Zanten released the brakes and advanced the throttles. 4 massive engines roared to life. The Boeing 747 began to move. In the tower, the controller heard something that didn't sound quite right. He transmitted, "Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you." At the same moment, the Pan Am crew, still on the runway, still searching for their turnoff in the fog, transmitted their own urgent message. "We're still taxiing down the runway." Both transmissions arrived at exactly the same time. They overlapped. They merged into a screech of interference that the KLM cockpit heard as nothing more than static noise. Neither message got through. Flight engineer Willem Schroeder, sitting behind the 2 pilots, heard something in the exchange that troubled him. He turned to Van Zanten and asked, "Is the Pan Am not clear of the runway?" Van Zanten did not hesitate. "Of course," he said, and he kept the throttles forward. Muers said nothing more. The 747 accelerated through the fog. Inside the Pan Am cockpit, Captain Grubbs and First Officer Robert Bragg were still looking for their exit. The fog was impenetrable. The taxiway markings were difficult to read. They had passed the assigned turnoff without realizing it. And then Bragg saw something in the gray wall ahead. Lights, moving lights, coming toward them at speed. "God damn," Grubbs said. "That son of a bitch is coming." He pushed the throttles forward. He turned the wheel hard left, trying to steer the 747 off the runway and onto the grass. Bragg's voice filled the cockpit. "Get off! Get off! Get off!" In the KLM cockpit, Van Zanten saw the shape of the Pan Am aircraft materialize from the fog less than 700 meters ahead. He was already moving at 160 kilometers per hour. There was no way to stop. He did the only thing he could think of. He pulled back on the controls, hard, trying to lift the aircraft into the air before reaching the Pan Am. The nose rose. The tail dragged along the runway, scraping a groove 22 meters long into the asphalt. The KLM 747 left the ground, but it was too late and too heavy. and too slow. The landing gear of the KLM aircraft struck the top of the Pan Am fuselage just behind the cockpit. The engines tore through the upper deck. The roof of the Clipper Victor was ripped open, and the KLM 747, its belly shredded, dropped back to Earth and slid down the runway, exploding into fire. The time was 5:06 in the afternoon. All 248 people aboard KLM Flight 4805 died instantly. The Pan Am aircraft was engulfed in flames. The forward section was torn apart, but the cockpit survived. Captain Grubbs, First Officer Bragg, and Flight Engineer George Warnes escaped through the shattered windows. Some passengers in the forward section were able to jump to the ground, a 6-meter drop, before the fire reached them. Of the 396 people aboard Pan Am Flight 1736, 61 survived. 583 people were dead in less than a minute on the ground. Emergency services arrived within minutes, but the fog was so thick that the first responders initially drove past the KLM wreckage and went directly to the Pan Am aircraft. By the time they found the KLM plane, there was nothing to do. The world learned what had happened within hours. Television stations interrupted their programming. Newspapers ran headlines that seemed impossible to believe. 2 fully loaded 747s, the same runway, 583 dead. In Amsterdam, KLM executives were trying to reach Captain Van Zanten for help with the investigation. They had heard that their aircraft was involved in a collision. They needed their chief 747 instructor on the ground in Tenerife immediately. Then someone told them. Van Zanten was already there. He had been there since 5:06. The investigation revealed that the cause was not a single error. It was a cascade, a chain of decisions and circumstances that each seemed reasonable in isolation, but together created a catastrophe that killed nearly 600 people. The bomb that diverted both flights. The small airport overwhelmed by traffic. The fog that blinded everyone. The pressure Van Zanten felt about his duty hours. The radio transmissions that overlapped into silence. Remove any single one of those elements and 583 people go home. But the investigation also identified something deeper, something that changed aviation at its core. Van Zanten was the most respected pilot in the airline. When the flight engineer asked whether the Pan Am had cleared the runway, Van Zanten dismissed the concern in a single sentence. And no one pushed back. Because in 1977, you did not challenge a captain of Van Zanten's stature. That culture ended at Tenerife. In the years that followed, every major airline in the world overhauled the way their crews were trained to communicate. The concept of crew resource management, the idea that every voice in the cockpit matters, regardless of rank, was born directly from what happened on that runway. Co-pilots and flight engineers were taught, for the first time, that speaking up was not insubordination. It was their responsibility. Standard radio phraseology was overhauled worldwide. The word takeoff was removed from all ground communications. Controllers would never again use it, except to give an explicit takeoff clearance. Ground radar became mandatory at major airports. New lighting systems were installed on runways around the world. Every one of those changes has saved lives, thousands of them. 583 people died on a foggy runway in the Canary Islands on a Sunday afternoon in 1977. They did not die for nothing. Their story changed the way the world flies. Tenerife, March 27, 1977. the deadliest day in aviation history. Never forgotten.